This is Mike with Noisy Boys, and today I'm going to show you how to add LED lights to your RC car to maybe give it a more realistic look. So you can turn it from this into something like this. Before you begin, you'll probably have to gather some of these items on this list. You can pick them up from a local hardware store, or I'll have the link in the descriptions below for some of the stuff that I use or have bought in the past in order to get this done. Start off by removing the 4 plastic pins that hold the shell on. Once you have the shell off, you can begin taping off the front headlight section and prepping for the drilling portion. Also, once you tape off those headlights, if you use painter's tape, you can actually see like the black outline of where the headlight actually is painted on. So that way you can use that to draw a line with a Sharpie so you can kind of get a rough alignment for the holes that you'll be drilling. You'll just repeat the same step that you did on the front half of the headlights for the back, but instead of doing a line, you'll just do little dots that are roughly in the center of the stickers that are on the back. Now grab your drill and put on the 5/64 bit and drill your pilot holes. Just kind of take your time to get the spacing how you want it, so that way when you go to size up the holes, you don't have to worry about their alignment as much. And to kind of keep in the center, that Sharpie line I originally drew previously in the video, I just used to kind of help get myself center when I was drilling those holes, and then just kind of eyeballed this spacing. So here's what it kind of looks like once you get those holes drilled. Now granted, it's not perfect in my opinion. I wasn't stressing over like if they were exact because of the fact that it is just an RC car, so I didn't really care too much if it was slightly off in the spacing, because once the lights are on, you can barely even tell. Now that all the pilot holes are drilled, you can go ahead and swap out the drill bit that you have in your drill and swap it to the next size up, or go directly for the 11/64 size. If you do go directly to the 11/64 size, just kind of drill slower so you don't get as many burrs, just because it's super thin plastic, and the tape will kind of help with that, but not too much. You'll see me grab an LED light to test the fitment occasionally. That's something I do recommend, so that way you're not over drilling the size of the hole. For the RX-7 model RC drift car, it does have 3 headlight stickers essentially that you can use to drill your holes, but because the front of the RC car is sloped, you're going to want to make sure that you angle or auger the hole out so you can stick those lights in straight. So here I show you that the tape does kind of peel the sticker on the taillight off, so I then just made the decision to just rip those stickers off completely due to the fact that they're going to be replaced with the LED lights. Now go ahead and grab your deburring tool file or a countersink, which is what I use. Just be careful if you're going to use the countersink, as it will also size up the hole. So painting the underside of the shell is optional, but I would recommend doing it after you've deburred everything. Just painting the underside helps with not having the light shine through the backside of the shell because of the plastic being so thin. Once all the burrs are removed, you should be able to wedge your LED lights in there. It may take a little bit of force, but they will get in there nice and snug. Once you have the holes where they need to be and at the proper size, you can go ahead and start gluing. I used a hot glue gun just due to the fact that I didn't have any super glue, and the super glue has cracked on me in the past for these because of it being so stiff, and so I switched to the hot glue to kind of give this a shot and see if it will resist bumping into things a little bit better than the super glue did. Now that everything is glued, you can go ahead and start cutting the wires to a shorter length so they're just not all over the place, because you will be linking all the solid colors together and all the blacks together. The blacks are negative on these particular LEDs, and then the wire color is generally whatever the color of the light is. So if it's a green light, it's got a green wire. If it's a blue light, it's got a blue wire, and so on and so forth. But you'll link all the colored wires together. Those are your positives, and then all your blacks together in those areas, just to kind of make it a little bit more organized so it's not a mess of wires. When linking these wires, the barrel connectors definitely do come in handy, because it just means you don't have to solder anything. You can just strip the wire, push them all together, and just crimp one of the barrel lines shut, and then put your extension on the other side, crimp it shut, and now you have an extended wire that just feeds all of those lights, like the left side or the right side. I do save all of the scrap wires and set them off to the side, because those are what I use for the extension, so you don't have to buy any additional wire. You can just use what you've cut off via the excess wire. If at any time you're uncertain if whether your crimps are good or bad, you can go ahead and take the battery, hook the 9-volt battery connector up to it, and stick the leads onto the ends of the wire, positive and negative, and see if it lights up after you've done your crimps and all of that, just to make sure that everything is still going. Now that you have all the wires cleaned up, you can go ahead and take one female and one male spade connector and crimp them onto the final ends of those wires, because that's going to be the part where you use to plug that shell back into the 9-volt battery that will be on the frame of the RC car. The reason I say you use one male and one female is because that way you cannot plug them in backwards when they're hooked up to the battery itself. Once you have the shell all wired up, you can set it to the side. I did forget to record the portion where I put the switch into the housing that covers the rechargeable battery on the RC body. Now that cover does come off with 4 Phillips screws there in the corners of that little center cap. To get the switch in there, I just used a box cutter and cut a rectangle slightly smaller than the switch, and then sized it up as needed until the switch fit in there. Now, if you cut the switch size too big, you can go ahead and use glue to hold it into place. Now, if you're using super glue though, I do recommend you be careful, because if the super glue gets inside the switch, it will not function properly and you'll have a really difficult time actually using the switch itself. But once you've got that all done, you can go ahead and wire the switch up by using the 2 prongs that are on there. They have these little tiny holes. You can just twist the wire and pass it through the hole and wrap it around, and then tape it to the side. You can add electrical tape to protect the prongs, but I wasn't really too worried about that. Once that part's done, you can go ahead and just move to the body and start adding all the underglow that you want, whatever colors you want. I did blue and green, green for the front and back and blue on the sides. If you have the bumpers still on the RC car, the bumper does have these little triangle notch outs cut on it. You can go ahead and just glue in the points of those. Use the back side of the cutouts, like the back corners, I would say, just because of the fact that once they're glued on, if you put the shell on, it actually does not cover the fact that you glued them in place, unless you use super glue because it's thinner. But if you use hot glue like I did, takes more glue to hold those things in place, so you will see that once the shell's back on. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're doing the placement. Just kind of have fun with it. There's really no right or wrong. Worst case scenario, if you're using hot glue, you rip it off and put it in the place you want and then re-glue it. When it comes to wiring the underglow portion that's attached to the RC body directly, go ahead and wire them similar to how you did on the body. So just link all the colors together and all the blacks together to get them as to few wires as possible, because I did go ahead and drill a hole that you're going to want to do as well in the 11/64 size on the side that the switch was, on the cap where the switch is located, because the wires are going to have to pass through there. There is also a channel that is on the front portion near the front two wheels that you can pass the wires through, and then that actually passes directly into the shell. The hole on the other side is just because of the wires on the back side. It doesn't have a channel that those can pass through, so you'll just slip the wires through there and link them all together. Now, I did go ahead and use double-sided sticky tape to secure the battery to the RC car. Now, you do have to replace this, and when you replace it, you're going to have to replace the double-sided sticky tape. But if you purchase the Velcro that was on the list, then you can just use the Velcro and replace the Velcro portion that was stuck to the battery. When you're linking all the wires inside the shell, the upper shell, it is important that you pass the wires through before you crimp them together, because once they're crimped together, you cannot fit them through there unless you drill a bigger hole, which is up to you. You can't do that. But you do want to link all the negatives together and then use one barrel connector, and then take some excess black wire that you have left over, probably the longer portion that you have left, and feed it back out that same hole, so that way you have like a pigtail that you can put the spade connector on to attach to the shell. Now for the switch, you're going to take the positive lead off of the 9-volt battery wire and connect it to one side of the switch, and then the other side will link all of the positive wires on the body together, so that way when the switch is on, it actually just passes the positive current through the switch. And then do a pigtail off of that using a similar method that you use for the grounds, and feed it back out the hole, so that way you have a positive and negative on the outside of that shell once it's screwed back on. And make sure to test this periodically just to make sure nothing comes loose when you're screwing it all together, or if you accidentally pinched a wire. But once that's all said and done and you put those final 2 spade connectors on, you can go ahead and plug the shell in. Now, if you use male spade connector on the positive wire, then you're going to want to use a female spade connector on the positive wire on the RC body, so they can plug into each other. Other than that, you're pretty much good to go. This project does take roughly 2 hours, sometimes more, depending on how fast you want to go or how tedious you want to be with it, or if you painted it. You know, you're going to probably do 1 or 2 coats of the paint. You'll have to do more masking. It's completely up to you. It's just a fun little side project. You can solder the connections. I chose not to. Don't really care about if it affects the drift factor of these RC drift cars, because it's an RC car and it's just a toy. It's not a hobby RC car either. It's just for fun. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you have any further questions in regards to it, anything that I didn't mention, you can go ahead and leave a comment. Reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram via @NoisyBoysLLC, and that'll pull us up. It'll also be at the end of the video if you're not sure how to search for us.